I still remember the day a complete stranger grabbed my arm in a grocery store and whispered a secret that would tear my family apart. My name is Anahita, though most call me Anna. I am 69 years old and my life has been built on quiet sacrifice. But I learned that the deepest wounds are not from knives, but from the betrayal of those you called family. It was a Tuesday. The light was a pale, washed-out gold. I was at the checkout, buying a simple vanilla cake for a lunch with my son, Kian, and his wife, Laila. I had counted my coins for this, sacrificing small pleasures to feel like I was contributing. The cashier, an older man named Walter, had kind eyes. He scanned my cake, and my card was declined. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. This was the familiar dance of a pension that barely stretches. I laid out my crumpled bills and heavy coins. And then everything shifted. Walter looked at the name on my card. Then he looked at me, his eyes now holding a dark, piercing intensity. He leaned forward, his voice a hushed, urgent whisper. Anahita, are you Kian's mother? A cold dread prickled at my neck. I nodded. He reached out, his hand closing around my wrist. His grip was firm, insistent. He leaned in close, and the words he spoke next felt like a physical blow, a shard of ice driven straight into my heart. He told me about my daughter-in-law's family, their regular visits to this store, spending hundreds on imported wines and premium meats. He said he knew they were bleeding my son dry, that the father, Darius, had boasted about Kian's generous monthly deposits. He saw me, an old woman counting coins for a simple cake, and it broke him. He said he had to speak. He couldn't watch another family be devoured by such calculated greed. Then he let go, just like that. He straightened up and continued scanning as if he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the center of my universe. I stood there, paralyzed. The world narrowed to the receipt trembling in my hand. The store sounds faded into a dull roar. My heart was a frantic, trapped bird against my ribs. Was it possible? Could this be true? Or was it a cruel misunderstanding? My body moved on instinct. I walked out the back entrance, into the alley, needing air to think, and I saw them, the large green dumpsters. I moved behind them, the smell of rotting food filling my nostrils. A small price to pay. From this hiding place, I had a perfect hidden view of the parking lot. I would wait. I would watch. If this terrible seed of doubt had been planted, I would see with my own eyes if it was destined to grow into a poisonous truth. Before I continue this difficult journey, I must ask you a small favor. If you have ever felt the sting of betrayal, if you have ever had your kindness mistaken for weakness, then you understand why I must tell this story. Please, if you are with me, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Your engagement allows me to share these painful truths and build this community of strength. It means more than you know. So I waited, hidden. The seconds stretched, each one pounding with my heart. And then I saw him. Darius, Laila's father. He walked out not with the slouch of a man burdened by ruin, but with a confident, easy stride. In his hands were heavy, glossy bags from the Gilded Harvest, a boutique market I could never afford. The name shimmered in gold, a blatant symbol of a world closed to me. My breath hitched. This was not the man choosing between medication and groceries. I watched, my body growing colder. He walked to a car, a sleek silver SUV that gleamed under the sun. It was new, impossibly new. This was not the breaking down old clunker they constantly lamented. He opened the trunk, placing his expensive bags inside with casual care. Then he took out his phone, his body relaxed, laughing. This was not a man haunted by debt. In that moment, the carefully constructed image of their desperate poverty began to crack. Walter's words were no longer a whisper. They were becoming my horrifying reality. I knew I couldn't leave, not yet. My gut, that deep knowing I had silenced for so long, was now screaming. I had to see more. As I remained hidden, the memories flooded back, each now tainted with sinister meaning. I remembered that morning, counting my $43. The cake took 20. The rest was for my medications, from my own meager groceries. I had put on my best dress, styled my thinning hair. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who believed family was the one thing you could always count on. Kian had picked me up. He seemed tense. Now I wonder, did he sense the lie? We made small talk, avoiding his marriage. When we neared their neighborhood, I asked to stop at the store. He offered to come in, but I insisted on going alone. A decision fate had a hand in. And then, the checkout line. Walter. The whisper. The devastating truth. He told me he saw Laila buying designer things here, always in cash. He said it was an injustice. He told me his own mother had been used and he regretted his silence. The seed was planted. And now, from behind these dumpsters, I was watching it take root. I saw Darius finish his call and walk back, his eyes scanning the lot with a furtive glance. He was ensuring his performance had no witnesses. Then I heard two women talking. "Did you see Layla's new handbag?" one said. "That wasn't a sale item." "I know," the other replied. "And yet, she says they can barely afford utilities. It doesn't add up." Their words echoed Walter's, a chorus of confirmation. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a calculated, long-running deception. My kind, trusting son was their unsuspecting victim. My phone vibrated. A text from Kian. "Mom, everything okay? You've been a while." My hands trembled as I typed back a lie. "Just a long line, my son. On my way now." I had to go back to him. I had to sit in his car and smile and pretend. My world hadn't just been torn apart. I had to break bread with the people breaking my son. But as I stepped out from behind the dumpsters, brushing the grime from my dress, I knew one thing for certain. The game was over. The curtain was pulled back. I had seen the truth, and I would never be able to unsee it. The quiet, sacrificing mother was gone. In her place stood a woman who had discovered a deep, psychological wound, and the slow, cold burn for a reckoning had begun. This is where the story truly begins, but it is too much for one sitting. The heart can only bear so much. I will pause here to gather my strength for the next part. Please, if this story resonates with you, if you understand the pain of a broken trust, leave me a comment below. Let me know I'm not alone. And please, subscribe so you do not miss what happened next. The lunch, the confrontation, the painful fallout. Your support gives me the courage to continue. Until next time, my dear ones, be wise, be kind, but most of all, be aware. Protect your hearts. Walking back to my son's car, with the smell of garbage still clinging to my clothes and the truth clinging to my soul, was one of the hardest things I have ever done. Every step felt like I was walking through deep water. I had to arrange my face into a mask of normalcy. When inside, everything was shattered. Kian looked at me with concern as I opened the car door. "Mom, are you okay? You look pale," he said. His kindness, his genuine worry for me, was like a knife twisting in the wound. "Just the line, son," I lied, my voice surprisingly steady. "You know how these stores can be." He accepted this, and as he started the car, I tried to keep my breathing even. We were driving straight into the lion's den, and he had no idea. During the drive, I had to be careful. "How is Darius's work situation lately?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Last I spoke with Laila, she said things were very difficult." Kian sighed, his hands tight on the wheel. "Yeah, Mom. She told me his company cut his hours again. That's why we've been helping a little extra these past few months." I just nodded, looking out the window. The man I had just seen did not have the weary posture of someone whose hours had been cut. He had the swagger of a man in control. We pulled up to their house. It was in a pleasant, well-kept neighborhood. The lawn was manicured, the facade recently painted. This was not the home of a family on the brink of financial collapse. "The house looks very well maintained," I commented. "I thought you mentioned they were struggling with repairs." "Oh, Darius managed to pick up some weekend consulting to handle the most urgent things," Kian replied as he parked the car. Another perfect, rehearsed explanation. My heart sank further. Before we could even ring the bell, the door flew open and there was Laila, and my breath caught in my throat. The transformation from the last time I'd seen her was staggering. She wore a designer dress, the fabric lush and the cut impeccable. Her shoes were new, her handbag was coordinating, and her hair had the kind of expert highlights and cut you only get from a very expensive salon. "Anahita, what a joy," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. And her perfume. It was that French fragrance I once saw in a department store, a tiny bottle that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "Oh, this old thing?" She laughed when I complimented the dress. "I found it on a clearance rack months ago. You have to jump on those deals." The exact same words the women in the parking lot had mentioned. The script was being followed perfectly. We stepped inside, and the evidence continued to mount. The living room was transformed. A new, buttery soft leather sofa, a gleaming glass coffee table, a massive flat-screen television on the wall. A model I knew was this year's release. My eyes took inventory of every new, expensive item, and with each one, my heart hardened. Darius came out from the kitchen, wiping his hands on an apron as if he'd been cooking all morning. "Anahita, so good to see you," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I saw the flicker of recognition, the slight tension in his jaw. He knew I knew something. He just didn't know how much. I handed him the cake. "What a lovely gesture," Laila chimed in. "But you really shouldn't have." As she spoke, I looked past her into the kitchen. The counters were laden with expensive cuts of meat, exotic vegetables, bottles of imported olive oil. The feast they had prepared could have fed my son and me for a week. We sat down to eat. The table was set with what looked like new china. Darius poured wine into crystal glasses, a wine I recognized. I had seen the bottle at the store. It cost $50. "This wine is delicious," I said. "A friend in imports." Darius waved a hand dismissively. "Gets it for me at a special price. Can't pass it up." Another generous friend. Another incredible deal. The web of lies was so elaborate, so practiced. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. It was Walter, the cashier. He had sent me a photo of a grocery receipt from 2 days ago. The total was over $400. The name on it was Darius Williams. The list was a catalogue of luxuries, imported cheeses, premium steak, French champagne. The message read, "Mrs. Anahita, I thought you should see this. Your family needs to know the truth." I put my phone away, my hand trembling. The proof was in my pocket, burning a hole through the fabric. My dear listeners, this is where the reality of the situation truly began to crush me. To see the abundance, the luxury, while holding the knowledge of my son's sacrifices. It took all my strength not to scream. If you are listening to this, and you understand this feeling of helpless anger, please let me know in the comments below. Just writing "I understand" would mean the world to me. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. This story is difficult to tell, and your support is the pillar that holds me up. The lunch continued, a grotesque pantomime of family happiness. Laila talked about a big party they were planning. "Sounds expensive," I remarked, unable to hold my tongue. "Oh, we've been saving for months," she said breezily. "And Darius's consulting job is really helping." I looked at my son. He was nodding, believing every word. He was so proud to be their savior. He had no idea he was their fool. Later, Darius gave me a tour of the house, showing off the improvements. In their bedroom, on the dresser, were shopping bags from high-end boutiques, some with receipts still visible. The numbers on those tags were staggering. "Laila found some amazing sales," he said, his voice a little too high. "A sale does not explain $1,000 in new clothes." My silence was no longer an option, but my timing had to be perfect. I could not act on emotion alone. I needed a plan. I needed irrefutable proof that even my trusting son could not explain away. When we finally said our goodbyes, the car ride home was thick with a tension only I could feel. Kian was cheerful. "They look well, don't they, Mum?" he said. "Yes, son," I replied, my voice quiet. They look very well. It was the understatement of a lifetime. That night, alone in my small apartment, I made a decision. I would not confront him yet. The wound was too fresh, the evidence too circumstantial for his loving heart to accept. I would become a detective of my own life. I would gather proof. I would document every lie, every luxury, every inconsistency. I would build a case so solid, so undeniable, that when I finally presented it to my son, it would not be my word against theirs. It would be the cold, hard, unforgiving truth staring him in the face. The quiet mother was gone, the protector had awakened, and she would not rest until her son was free. This journey into the heart of a family's betrayal is a long one, and we must pause again. The most painful part is yet to come. The confrontation, the tears, the shattering of a marriage. I will need all my strength to tell it. So, please, if you are standing with me, with us, show your support. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. You are not just an audience, you are my community, and I will need you for what comes next. Until then, take care of your hearts. The days after that lunch were the longest of my life. Living with the truth was a heavy, silent burden. Every time my phone rang and it was Kian, my heart would clench. I had to listen to him talk about working extra hours, about the stress of another urgent bill from Laila's family, all while knowing the extravagant reality I had witnessed. It was a special kind of torture, watching my son run himself into the ground for a beautiful, carefully constructed lie. I began my quiet investigation. Walter, the cashier, became my unexpected ally. He would send me photos, receipts, glimpses of Laila, or Darius loading their cart with luxuries. Each image was another piece of the puzzle. One showed a $600 purchase for French champagne and imported seafood, dated the very same day Laila had called Kian, sobbing about a medical emergency. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I also heard from Hermione, the woman from the parking lot. She contacted me, saying her conscience wouldn't let her stay silent. She told me about the lavish parties, the professional caterers, the new car they'd just leased. "They're laughing at you, Anahita," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "The whole neighborhood sees it." And with every new piece of information, the cold, hard stone of my resolve grew heavier. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my son's spirit, his trust, his very perception of love being systematically corrupted. The breaking point came on a Wednesday night. Kian came to my apartment after work, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. "Mom," he said, rubbing his temples, "Laila's father needs a minor surgery. The insurance won't cover it all. They need another $2,000 by Friday." He looked at me, and I saw the fatigue etched deep in his kind eyes. "I've been working double shifts all week to try and cover it. $2,000? For the same man I'd seen handing cash to a stranger in a parking lot without a second thought." That was the moment. The dam of my silence broke. "Kian," I said, my voice quiet but unwavering, "I need to show you something. And before I do, I want you to know that I am doing this only because I love you more than anything in this world." I took out my phone. I showed him the first receipt from the grocery store. His face went blank with confusion. "What is this? Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice a mixture of denial and dawning horror. Before he could formulate an excuse for them, I showed him the next photo. And the next. I showed him the $600 champagne receipt from the day of the medical emergency. I told him about my conversation with Walter. I repeated what Hermione had told me about the parties, the new car, the constant deliveries. I watched his face as the reality crashed over him. I saw the confusion, the denial, and finally the devastating, gut-wrenching comprehension. The man who had built his marriage on a foundation of trust and sacrifice was watching that foundation turn to dust before his eyes. "But there has to be an explanation," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Maybe they got a windfall. Maybe—" "Son," I said softly, placing my hand over his. "These purchases were made on the exact days they called you in a panic. The neighbors have seen their true life for years. This is not a coincidence. This is a pattern, a calculated one. He stood up and paced my small living room, running his hands through his hair. I could see him replaying every conversation, every request for money, every convenient explanation about sales and friends. The puzzle pieces were finally connecting in his mind, forming a picture he never wanted to see. "What hurts the most, Mom?" he finally said, his voice thick with tears. "Isn't the money. It's realizing that for 2 years I never really knew the woman I married. It was all an act." He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the death of his marriage. "I need to talk to her," he said, a new grim determination in his tone. "I need to hear her say it to my face." "Are you ready for that?" I asked him. "Once you have this conversation, there is no going back. Your life will change forever." He was silent for a long time, looking at the photos on my phone. "You were right to show me," he said finally. "You saved me from a lifetime of being their puppet." My dear friends, this was the most painful moment of my life, watching my son's heart break in real time. To see the trust drain from his eyes was an agony I would not wish on any mother. If this story is touching your heart, if you feel for my Kian, please let me know in the comments. Your words are a comfort. And if you are new here, please subscribe to the channel. We are a community that supports one another through truth, no matter how hard it is to hear. Your subscription tells me you want to stand for honesty, and it ensures you won't miss the final, heartbreaking conclusion. He left my apartment that night, a different man from the one who had entered. I stayed awake, praying for his strength, knowing the confrontation that was happening would define the rest of his life. At 2 a.m, my phone rang. It was Kian, and his voice was hollow, stripped raw. "Mom," he said without preamble, "you were right about everything." What he told me next confirmed my worst fears, and then some. When he got home, he had looked through Laila's things, something the old Kian would never have done. He found hidden shopping bags, jewelry with price tags still attached. And then he found it, a notebook, a ledger, meticulously documenting every lie, every fabricated emergency, every dollar he had sent them over 2 years. It was all there, written down like a business plan. The next planned crisis was a $1,800 dental emergency for Laila's mother. When I confronted her, Kian said, his voice flat with shock, "She didn't deny it. She got angry. She said I had no right to spy on her, that you had poisoned me against her." He took a shaky breath. But when I showed her the receipts, she changed. She admitted it. She said her family had never struggled, that my generosity was just easy to exploit. He had even called Darius, who coldly confirmed it, saying it was nothing personal, just business. The sheer, calculated coldness of it all was worse than I had ever imagined. This was not a family falling on hard times. This was a family running a con, and my son was their mark. "I've already told her it's over," Kian said, a finality in his tone that broke my heart. "Tomorrow, I start the divorce proceedings." The truth had set him free, but first it had utterly destroyed him. And as his mother, all I could do was be there to help him pick up the pieces. This is where we must end for today. The emotional toll of reliving this is immense. The final chapter of this story involves the divorce, the shocking discoveries, and the long, difficult road to healing. To make sure you receive that final update, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. Your support is not just a click, it is a signal that these stories of truth and resilience need to be told. Thank you for being my strength. Until next time, hold your loved ones close and cherish the truth, for it is the only foundation that lasts. The silence after Kian's phone call that night was the loudest I have ever heard. My son's world had ended, and as his mother, I felt every fracture in my own soul. The divorce was not just a legal process, it was an excavation, unearthing layer upon layer of deception that shocked even me. The lawyers discovered a secret bank account. They found records showing the total taken from Kian was over $15,000. $15,000, a number that represented years of his honest labor, of overtime shifts and personal sacrifices, all given to people who saw his heart as a transaction. For months, my son was a ghost of himself. The betrayal had hollowed him out. He would call me late at night, his voice fragile in the darkness. "Mum, how will I ever trust anyone again?" he would ask. And I had no easy answer. I could only tell him that trust is a seed that must be planted in fertile, honest ground. He had been trying to make it grow in poisoned soil. During this time, Laila and her family tried one last desperate gambit. They called me. Darius's voice was smooth, pleading. "Anahita, talk to him. We'll pay it all back, every cent. It was a mistake." But a mistake is a one-time error. What they did was a 2-year campaign. "You had 2 years to be honest, Darius," I told him, my voice calm but unyielding. "You chose lies. Now you live with the consequences." Laila even came to my door, dressed in simple clothes, her face a mask of contrition. The performance was flawless, but I knew the script now. She cried. She said she loved him. She blamed me for meddling. When I did not bend, the mask finally slipped. Her eyes turned cold. "I always knew you were the problem," she spat, before turning and walking out of our lives for good. My dear listeners, this is the part of the story where I must be completely honest with you. The desire for revenge. It was there. A cold, dark flame that flickered in my heart. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they had inflicted on my son. I wanted public shame, financial ruin, anything that mirrored their cruelty. But true strength, I have learned, is not in the heat of revenge, but in the quiet power of rebuilding. And that is exactly what my Kian did. He took that $15,000 lesson and built a new foundation for his life. He learned to balance his beautiful, generous heart with wisdom. He saved money, bought a small house, and most importantly, he learned to value his own worth, enough not to let it be exploited. And then he met Regina. The first time he brought her to my apartment, she carried a bag of groceries. "I thought we could cook together, Anahita," she said with a genuine smile. And as we chopped vegetables, she looked at me and said the words that finally healed a broken piece of my heart. "I want you to know," she said, "I will never ask you or Kian for money. I believe in working for what I need and being honest about what I have." I had to turn away to hide my tears. After years of manipulation, here was simple, unadorned honesty. It was like a clean, fresh breeze blowing through our lives. Kian and Regina were married 6 months ago. And now, my dear friends, I have the most beautiful news to share with you, my community, who has been my rock through this entire story. Regina is expecting their first child. This child will be born into a home built on the solid ground of truth and mutual respect. He or she will never know the poisonous lies that almost destroyed their father. This is our victory, not a victory of revenge, but a victory of healing. It is the proof that after the storm, the sun does indeed shine again, and what grows from the rain-soaked earth is often stronger and more beautiful than what was there before. And so, my story ends not with a scream of anger, but with a whisper of gratitude. Gratitude for the stranger in the grocery store who had the courage to speak. Gratitude for the strength my son found to walk away. Gratitude for Regina, who restored our faith. And gratitude for you, for listening, for your supportive comments that have held me up. Now, I turn this over to you. This was my story of a painful truth, but I know I am not alone. Have you ever had to be brave to protect someone you love? Have you ever discovered a lie that changed everything? Please, share your own story or your thoughts with me in the comments below. Let's use this space, not just for my story, but for all of ours. Your voice matters here. Let's continue to be a community that chooses truth, supports healing, and believes in rebuilding together. Thank you for walking this difficult path with me. Until next time, may your hearts be wise, your boundaries strong, and your lives filled with genuine love. Goodbye for now.